So I'm trying to get the live stream going, as you can see here. Give me 1 second. Just remembered. All right, we'll see if that works.
Dave, I'm gonna Zoom DM you the instructions in case they disappear because before you're ready, before you'd read them all.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
I need help.
I would say this kind of just a lovely view. I love I assume that the heads are tracking each other, everyone's little mouse.
Yeah, that's correct.
The fact that the heads are moving is really, really nice. It makes it feel alive. Okay. Some good and some bad.
Oh no.
All right, hold on a sec. Can you send the chat to the version of me that's not showing video?
Oh, yes.
I have my laptop set up next to me to like run that, because I'm right now kind of confused about what I should do and what I can do.
Just sent it to the other Dave.
Yes. All right, so we need good dreams. One of each dream fragment. All right. Is there a way to mallet these?
You can press to switch to mallet.
Mallet.
Yep.
Oh wait. It's a space bar is mallet, it sounds like. Is this right? Hammer used. Okay, it looks like there's a cooldown here. Okay. Wait. Okay. There's a stunned thing on there. Oops. I'm in hammer mode, I think. What does being stunned mean? Whew. All right, I'm definitely, I can feel what I can, there's like things I can interact with, and there's like good feedback on like picking things up, and I'm sort of getting a sense of the feedback, but I'm definitely kind of confused about what some of what I'm trying to do. Are we trying to like work with each other?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So in theory, like we should look at the table and try to like pass things around and sort of recognize, oh, there's a lot of blue over there, so we should kind of get them distributed. There's like red over here. Move those around. And so the goal is to get everyone, basically to like move these things around and get them going to the right place.
Yeah,
It may help to talk to each other.
Right.
I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what to say. Part of it is I don't know who to address. Like I can see there's a blue person across the table from me. I don't know what color I am.
That was another
yellow
thing
one.
that was on your instructions. You're yellow.
Yeah, you're the yellow one. I'm the green one.
My assumption is that we're supposed to be gathering blue, yellow, and red and putting them together next to each other. Is that assumption right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so then can somebody send me some red, please?
Which one are you, Ruth? You
I'm blue.
blue.
I'm across from you.
I can get red to the edges of your domain, but I can't get them all the way across.
No, that's fine. Okay, so if I have red, now I have a red, blue, and a yellow next to each other. Is that good?
That's good. Now you got to press space to swap to your hammer.
And then do I need to bash them?
Then you bash them, yeah. That's what I found. And then you get thing. All right.
Oh.
All right. And Ruth, I think you've got the blue. What is happening when the stunned comes up on the screen?
So while you have your hammer out, you're able to click on your neighbors and so
Look at that.
yeah. And then while you're stunned, you can't do anything. Yeah, there you go.
And there's a cooldown on the hammer. Gotcha. Okay. I'm not too sure why I would stun my neighbors. I'm guessing there's a reason.
Well, there's good. You see the score at the top. There's good and bad dreams.
Yeah.
There's one person who can see. There's good and bad materials, and there's one person who can tell which ones they are.
Oh.
So what, I guess the question I then have is, what do I do with that information? Because right now, I guess very much like there's stuff I can do. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, so there's a imposter in this game. So that imposter is trying to make everyone make bad dreams. Then the other people are trying to make good dreams. So the imposter can see which one is good and which other is bad. So basically the reason that every player has a hammer is to they can guess which one is imposter and trying to stop his behavior.
Cool. All right, let's talk about this, because you guys are going for you got a lot built in terms of the interactivity. And I think one of the questions is what should we be sort of feeling and thinking about as we play this. So nice base of the interface and getting the mechanics in, this world from a I can move things around, pick them up, put them down, hit people on the head with a hammer, all that stuff is working. And so we were able to, it feels like we were able to play the full functional form of this experience. And the thing that I'm partially confused about the play, how should I be thinking about making dreams, and what success and failure is. I think there's another question, which is how should I be thinking about the story? How should I be thinking about who I am and what I'm doing? Let me actually that. So with that, the story starts with a conversation between a child and mother about movie night, and then there was sort of the mother was going on a business trip. I was trying to there were some dates on the screen, and I was trying to do is it today, and she's going on the business trip tomorrow. It's Sunday, and my brain's doing a bunch of stuff. Is it a school night? It's 8 o'clock. Man, 8 o'clock to start a movie night's really late for an 8-year-old. There's a little bit of just the parent brain happening of what are the logistics of this moment. And it's are we really doing a movie night? But so there's a movie night that's supposed to be happening that was promised, but then the report card gets pulled out, and we're sort of kind of in a space where so we get the movie that gets rejected because of the report card. Is that basically what's happening? And then we go to bed in basically the evening ends poorly. This is and believe me, this is actually kind of a real moment, which is the child is excited about something, and then at the last moment there's a twist and the evening ends poorly. Is a real thing that happens with kids and parents. But the child goes to bed and is I want this to be better. I wish we could do this again, which to me screamed time travel. I was oh, we are going back in time. We're going to fix this. but we actually go into a dream control space. And that seems to tie a little bit into what the mom said, which is you need a good night's sleep. And so like, I think that's one of the first things, like that story, I didn't expect us to get to where we ended up, from where the story started. And I guess one thing I'm wondering for you guys is like, what is the story? So if we go through the experience, what is the completion of this story? Like if we do well.
So basically, if Billy has mostly good dreams, he'll sleep through the night and then he'll have good grades because he had a good night's sleep, just like the mom wanted. But if and you saw in game that there's good dreams and then there's nightmares, right? If Billy has a lot of nightmares, he'll wake up and his mom will say sorry to him. That's the ending that you saw. So there's 3 people who receive instructions to make good dreams, and that's sort of like the stated goal is like make sure this kid sleeps. But there's one person who receives different instructions. They're sort of like subversive, I guess, and they're like, you need to make nightmares. Don't tell the other people, so that they can resolve their argument before she leaves. And then depending on who wins in the game, you get whichever ending. But yeah.
Yeah, so both the like good guys players, which you were one of them, Dave, and the one imposter player, they're both invested in granting Billy's wish, just doing it in different ways.
So one of my reactions to the story is, man, the story is complicated. And part of the thing that I'm struggling with is, as one of the guests in this story, it sounds like what you want me to be thinking is, oh, I'm going to help Billy by giving him good dreams, and that will solve his problem, which is he needs to get good grades so he can have a good relationship with his mom, so he can have a movie night. And that's it's sort of like a domino chain of effects that I think you guys know, but I did not really catch that that's the full, like, if we give him good dreams, he will get a good night's sleep, his report card will improve, his mom will love him more, and they will have a movie night. Because the story that we start with is a very immediate problem, which is movie night got canceled. And in my mind, it's like, oh, like we want to just have movie night. But you're telling sort of a story which is much more of like a relationship, and there's a business trip in here that I'm not too sure how it ties in with grades. And so I think from a story perspective, like my role as a guest, like I'm pretty removed from the story itself in terms of like how my role is going to directly solve the problem. So a very sort of indirect solution to what is presented as an immediate problem. And so I think that's one of the things I'm sort of struggling with in this. Ruth, how are you sort of feeling this?
So I was confused at the beginning at the story if I was the mother or the kid, because the story starts out as mom, and mom's, oh, I'm not going to be here in the morning. Let me sign your report card. So I really thought that I was a parent at first, but then the game is really about the kid's point of view. So in the beginning, I would switch that. I wouldn't worry about the business trip or anything else. It's just about I'm going to be the kid. And here comes mom and says, give me your report card. So that's a really minor switch. But if you can get the player's mind in the right head right from the beginning, I think this will have a stronger connection. The other thing is, I agree with Dave that at the end of your story, right before the game starts, you've connected me into, if only I could change this. If only when I wake up in the morning, it's different. And I think you need to just really emphasize that, if only I can have good dreams tonight, I know that tomorrow will be a better day. And really bring that in, so that I understand that I'm helping him have good dreams. Having good dreams making the world better is nonsense. But from a kid's point of view, and if you get me into the head of the kid, then it all makes sense, because they make those really weird connections. And the whole part about the bad grade, lost movie night, go to bed, I love that. It's so true. In fact, as I was watching it, I could remember a specific time when that actually happened in our household. So you nailed that really well, but just connected a little bit more. In the game itself, I read the instructions, but there's so much going on that by the time the game comes up, most of my instructions were out of my head. So if you're going to have naive players and this is a one shot, I would put somewhere on the top of the screen a really short line that says what the instructions are again, so that we have that. Do you have the ability? Do you have an animator in your team who could animate the kid in the bed in the middle of the board? Because if you do, I think that would be a really great way to show a little bit more feedback as good dreams and bad dreams.
One of our plans was, like, even if animation is out of scope for next week, would be to make sound effects of Billy talking in his sleep.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily need to animate a full body. He's under a blanket. You really just need some kind of motion that represents, oh, good dream, and some kind of motion that represents bad dream. Something that give a little bit more feedback there, I think would be really great. You're in a great place at Interim. It's just now tweaking it a little bit more. And then maybe in your instructions, encourage talking back and forth. It was very confusing to figure out what I was supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, one place to look is, so the weirdest thing about your world is you have this whole dream fantasy land that there's this group of characters that control dreams, and that some of them are imposters and they cause bad dreams. So your story is all about the relationship with the boy and the mom, and we have no sense of my role as a guest, and so I can kind of get that I'm motivated to give a child good dreams. So like this child is, asking the dream makers to give him good dreams. But nothing about your story has any concept of an imposter and about an antagonist. And so your story is basically completely ignoring that. And so from a story perspective, it doesn't exist at the moment.
Which person was playing the imposter? Or was that even something that you noticed? You would have had a different instructions text that told you to give Billy nightmares.
I didn't even notice.
I might have read it along.
But that kind of left your head because it went by very quickly and stuff.
I thought it was an option of things that I could do. Not the only thing I was supposed to do.
I see. Okay.
Well, and there's 3 other guests, and if they don't know about this, there is if you want this. So one, your world doesn't need it. Your world does not need another guest to be a hidden antagonist. I think this is a very difficult story challenge because your world right now has no concept of this and is not building a story around it. I think if you want this to be a story about a secret antagonist, then you've got to make that sort of like an anchor of your story. This is a world where someone is trying to sabotage this. And it's a very different story than little Billy needs good dreams to have good grades. And one thing I would wonder is, what does a secret antagonist who's trying to sabotage dreams have to do with Billy? Because the making good dreams for Billy is what he's asking for, but who's out to get Billy here? What did he do to piss off the dream makers such that one of them is I'm going to screw you over? I think your relationship with your mom is too good, and I want bad things to happen to you. And so from a character perspective, I'm really curious about this antagonist and what they're trying to do.
So the antagonist isn't bad. They want Billy to wake up so that he'll resolve the immediate fight with his mom before she leaves on her trip. So instead of prioritizing grades, this person is prioritizing the fight that happened and giving them a chance to see each other again.
I guess the idea is that like hopefully the players would like kind of end up talking and you know they all have Billy's best interests at heart, even the imposter one, and they end up kind of talking about like if someone makes a nightmare, like they're like, how dare you make a nightmare for Billy, we love Billy, and they're like, well, you know, like maybe Billy doesn't need to have a good dream. And they're like, how dare, I'm gonna hit you on the head with a mallet. That's the idea. Didn't really happen, but that's the idea.
I mean, so it's great that you guys can have that in your heads of like what you would like the conversation to be. I think then the big question is how do you make that conversation happen?
Yeah,
Like,
it's in the instructions, but I think the instructions are too long for you to get to the theming part.
Yeah.
Yes. I generally don't like it when a story tells me what to think. But in this case, I would give that a try and really make that explicit and clear, my connection to all this.
Yeah.
Then I'm not the bad guy. I'm just the realist. That, you know, good dreams isn't going to make the world change. You have to make the world change. So wake up and do it yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's like the idea that the role of the guests are not really dream makers, but conflict resolvers, and we all have a different philosophy on how to resolve this conflict, like is not something I expected, but it now that fits your story a lot more, right? Like the idea it's not, and I think that's, you might just need to be really explicit. Like this is not, I mean, and I guess then I would ask why is the imposter secret? Like why bury this? Why not make it explicit? Why not make it like, you know, something that's more open and like you give me a role which is there's almost like a divide within the dream makers of like how to approach this. Like sleeping on things is good. You can wake up refreshed and you can approach things, and like you shouldn't go to bed angry. Like you should resolve your conflicts in the moment and things like that. Like I would look at this from a story perspective, like what these roles are and how you want that to be and how to get that conversation to happen. Because I'm leaving it to the space of someone is an imposter. Like I said, the fact that they're secret, I'm not too sure how to like fit that in the story. And then to Ruth's point, like telling me as a guest my role. And I don't think you have to tell me like necessarily what to say, but if you give me a character and you give me a perspective somehow, like you get me to understand that, there's a decent chance I might role play from that perspective a little bit. And I think that's kind of what you're going for, is you want the guest to role play.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah, no, you've got a lot of stuff here. Like for a relatively like, from a gameplay perspective, a relatively straightforward little, almost like cooperative puzzle game, but a story perspective that you've got interesting layers. So I think overall my advice would be like zero on the guest experience and the story they're experiencing, and I think trim on that, and get to the point. I think Ruth's comment about the perspective is a really good one. Like the boy and the relationship with the boy, the problem and the dream is the center of your story at the core. And I think build from that. All right, a lot of stuff. But yeah, great start and good job. Like I'm impressed with the 4-player, like getting it going and like making it happen. So could work on that front too. I think time to run the next world. So that was team 28. We're moving on to team 29. All right. Thank you, team 28. And team 29 is what? Does it say 5?
Yes.
Yes. So we can run this ourselves if that's easier.
Is this one within your capabilities, Ruth?
Let me see. See if it works. I have an index. Should work.
Oh, that's interesting. You might actually be better at this game than we are then, because it is somewhat precise in how you have to be, and the index precision might be even better with the fingers. So it might feel too easy, but okay.
My computers this morning are going, no, you cannot run this. I'm protecting you. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. It always muffs up with my camera and my mic. All right, so I am sitting in a room.
Is it possible for you to share a screen at all, Ruth?
Is it possible? Yeah, let me see if I can try that.
You should have permission.
Come on, over here.
Awesome.
Am I back in? Yeah, I'm back in.
We can see. Perfect.
Wait, what?
Is that right?
No, which
Oh.
is super weird. How did it even load this? Oh wait, did you when was this downloaded? I mean, it was still before. I mean, 12 for sure, but
This was downloaded about 5 minutes ago. 10 minutes. Well, no, about 9:30.
wait, what?
This is from the Google Drive.
Yes.
Oh, I might have put the wrong one in the Google Drive if that's the case, but I thought we had put the correct one in. Did we swap that out?
You want me to try to download it again?
Yeah, would that be okay? I'm sorry. The correct one is in Perforce. And I thought I put the right one in, but I must not have. Which is so weird because it looks like exactly the same one. I don't know. Like, that's an old scene that I think it's the right build actually that's in Google Drive. That scene is just not our scene anymore. And it's correct in the build settings here. I'll just try re-uploading it. That shouldn't change anything, but I don't know what's wrong.
Well, do you want to just? I mean, you could just run it yourself. I think that might be the
okay, sure.
solution.
Yeah, I'll just do that. 1 second. Let me. I'll join from my other computer. 1 second. Okay. Sorry, Ruth.
That's fine.
I just need to be let in.
Incomplete recording.
Dave, just to give you the full experience. Why is it echoing? This is not. You guys still hear me? I'm gonna switch it. Okay. Okay, so Dave, can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Okay. I am in a chair, or Ruth, you guys can give me instructions for what you want me to do, if that's more realistic. Also, I think I'm gonna rerun it.
I think just go through the world and talk out loud about what you're doing.
Okay.
The best way, I think, to do this.
Okay, so there's a phone ringing, and I'm picking it up because there's a dog over there, there's bottles on the ground, my bed, a window, just random stuff. There's this thing. I'm gonna pick up the phone.
It's exactly right. It's very important that you pick exactly the right colors. All right, so the combination is green, yellow.
So I'm getting
green,
combination.
Green.
And responses.
Green. Yellow, green, blue. Red, green, red, yellow. Blue, yellow, red, green, red.
So you can do that. Blue, green,
yellow.
You can
yellow, red.
I'll finish that in a
yellow,
second. On the
red.
radio. Dog will set. With a bone or something. You throw it, the dog will go get it. So
yellow, blue, yellow, red, red.
Yellow, blue, yellow, blue. And so when you do accomplish that, the dog is gone. And currently that's what we have. That's very hard to control with on the side angle.
Right. Is there, I guess I'm definitely a little confused about the story and what's going on.
Yes.
Right. Do you guys have do you have like a storyboard or something that you want to share? Or you want to talk through like what this story is aspiring to be?
Yeah. I think it might be better to talk through than show the storyboard, because we do have the storyboards, but I feel like it might be adding to the confusion. So just in a nutshell, the story is you are given tasks by a boss, which I feel like you guys probably couldn't hear because I didn't have the audio. You probably couldn't hear the boss telling you what you were doing and why. But the gist of it was you're supposed to be plugging in these numbers, and you get yelled at if you get it wrong. I was getting them right just so that the experience went faster, but you get yelled at. You're not allowed to put the phone down until you plug these things in. And your task is to get increasingly harder combinations into this game thing, this like programming thing. as it picks up pace. And the dog in the room is just there, and it's trying to distract you from your job. And it wants to play, and it'll like paw at you and like make noises, which is a little bit more visceral in VR. And if I wasn't looking at the dog, you guys didn't see the dog. But the dog will make noise and try to get your attention. And but your task is to actually like plug in these numbers. And at a certain point, once you get to the last level of like plugging in the numbers, and it's the longest sequence that you have to memorize, and you get it right, the dog is killed or is dies or something. Where you don't see, it's not an on-screen death or anything, but the dog is no longer there. And then you don't have the dog whining when you look at it and nothing like that. Like there's nothing that wants to play with you, and you just get to sit in the dark and do more work. And then we put you to sleep. We like force the like a fade of the camera, and then you wake up and the dog is there. And you get kind of another chance just to play with it. And then for the first time, you're allowed to put the phone down once you pick it up. That's kind of like the overarching.
Is like putting the phone down the end of the story?
So we decided that we weren't going to have a credits roll. We were going to have a like a moment where you can play with your dog as long as you want. He'll bring you the bone back, and you can just sit there and play until you're done.
Okay, so one of my first reactions is this world is very surreal. Is that intentional? Like, is this? I mean, this feels very dreamlike in the way it's presented, and I'm trying to get a sense of like, is that a goal of this? Is there like a hidden subtext, or is this, like just a story about droning on and doing the work that you're told to do versus living and playing with your dog?
So I would say it's actually it's a mix, but you are in a dream for sure. During this whole sequence that you saw, this is a dream. I mean, the dog doesn't actually die. You have a dream about doing work because that's how much work you do, and then the dog dies, and actually it doesn't die. You're just imagining this happening and thinking of yourself losing the time with this like beautiful animal that loves you and like adores you, and you just sit there doing work and not fixating it on it at all. So I think the dreamlike thing is not a bad read at all. I think that's nice that it reads that way.
Okay, no, I think that's would be one of my first reactions. Like, you have this like just the way that the audio for the boss, and like the idea of like such an absurd task, like play this Simon game.
Yes, exactly.
Like remember this thing and do this. And I think part of it is like the audio. There's sort of like this like technique often like in movies for dreams, which is like almost like the layering of like rhythms and sound effects that build this surreal scape that is space, and the world evokes that a little bit right now. And I guess part of that is know that, because if I'm the guest and I'm questioning reality, then I'm questioning your world. And I'm part of the story I'm telling myself is, what is real? What does this mean? And it sounds like you guys want that to some degree. And I guess I would encourage you, like, own it. Because it's okay to tell sort of an ambiguous story, but don't relinquish control to the point where like whatever, like it can be what you want it to be. Like if this is, know what you want to be sort of solid and specific, and where you want ambiguity. And I think that the space you created, like even where it is at right now, has a feel to it, which is like I kind of want to see what it's like. I'm kind of curious, like how that makes the guest sort of react to stuff. But I think it's the danger is you're going to tell a story that mostly confuses the guest, and I would be careful about confusing the guest as a strategy, especially confusing them not intentionally in certain places. And so that story of what do you want the guest to get out of this is something to sort of push at. I think one of the right things right now is you're drawing a big distinction between the dog and work. And I think if that's right now, it looks like the dog is just part of the surreal space. And there really isn't a distinction between this idea of work over here and sort of like the dog and something else over here. And that might be one thing to focus on, is how do you get the guest to think of them as sort of separate concepts, and that there is sort of a choice between them, as opposed to there's a dog over there, there's a bone over here, there's a bottle down there, there's a phone here, there's cassettes over here. I think that would be one thing I would look at, is like how they basically, what is this world that the guest builds in their head, and what are they defining as what's important and what's distinctive here.
Do you have like any tips for like how, or like best practices for like making that distinction? Like what identifies the dog as distinct? What would identify the dog as distinct?
I mean, you have a space here. I think you could use the metaphor of space.
Mm-hmm.
And if the dog is like, I might make the space tighter and make it clear the dog is part of an outside space and is coming in and trying to get, like, pull me out. So like I might really like think about like sort of like the world building you have, and like get the guest to think, okay, I'm in like my cubicle, and that represents this, and I can see outside there's something else out there, and the dog is like trying to get me out there, like, and there's like there's sort of like, it's not just the dog, but there's, I think, the clarity of the choice that you're giving the guest here. Because if you want something, that the choice is do the work or play with the dog. Basically choose work or dog. And I'd be skeptical that a guest would consciously understand that choice. They might, but I think you want to work to make that distinction clearer. So when they do what you want is when they hang up the phone, it is a conscious choice on the part of the guest, not just oh, I'm done with the work. Because what you don't want is, I'm done with this, now something else, but that's sort of ambiguous. So I would sort of think about that more clearly.
So you're saying like basically avoid the like sampling palette of like, oh, I did this for 5 minutes, now it's time to like do a new interaction. Like I've played Simon Says, like I get it, like time to do something else, versus like I am no longer a worker. I am like a person who plays with their dog, and this is a choice that I'm making, not to get new experiences, but because I want to play with my dog instead.
Yeah, and I mean, this gets into the fantasy the guest is playing into. Like if you don't build up the guest's role and what they're sort of how they should be thinking about what they're doing, you will get into a place where like, I'm just a person playing a VR world, and there's a phone I can pick up, and I'm going to do that. And I think that's your world is sort of like in that, like go into this VR workshop space and tinker with stuff. And that's a very like toy box kind of space. I think you guys want to take control of that and really sort of like try to impose more of a role on the guest, give them much more intentional motivation than just do what you want.
That makes sense. Okay.
You have a really subtle story. It's one of those where you have to finally finish the entire experience and then think about it to realize that there was a story there. So I think you have to be more direct. In real life, that dog would be scratching at your leg, pawing at your hand, trying to pull you, barking at you, and you don't get that in VR. You don't have that ability to get that kind of feedback. So I'd suggest try pulling the desk off the wall so that the dog is in your sight on the other side of the desk. And he is jumping up and down and trying to distract you visually and get the barking in there. Get it, make that dog incredibly annoying. That way, when he disappears, you really notice that, wait a minute, suddenly the barking stopped. If you don't show a dead dog, I don't know that many of your players are ever going to get that the dog is dead. Yeah. So do you need a dead dog? I mean, a dead dog is really, really powerful, but a missing dog can sometimes be powerful too, because then it's not that I lost the dog. It's not that the dog is dead. It's where is the dog? So no dog and an open door. Now I think I have a choice of, do I continue what I'm doing or do I go find the dog? If you want the dog to be dead, then you've got to kill that dog and create that powerful emotion from that. The other thing is, I'm not sure that the Simon game is the right thing for what you're trying to do, because there are some people in the world who actually like the Simon game. I'm one of them. And I would be totally focused on, ooh, Simon, okay, red, green, yellow, yeah. I would be so focused on trying to play that game, and playing that game is not what you want. You want me to feel the mundane life of a number cruncher. So I was really curious why you chose a Simon game when even in your description, you're like, fill in these numbers, type in these numbers, this number sequence. Why didn't you give me a number pad and made it even more boring and less of a game? Because I feel like your story is trying to say, this is my boring life. You know, and I would include things on the table like bills, notices that are past due, things that trying to pull me into that heartstring of, I need this. I need to keep this job, but I have this loving dog that wants my attention. And because that's the base of your story. It's that struggle between the dog and the bills.
Right. Yeah, no, actually, I think it's even just interesting to think about how like changing the number, the pad from colors to numbers would change the tone of like what you're being asked to do. And I think that's, I agree with you, Ruth, that like what does the world say about my role as the guest? And I think that's one of the things I'm reacting to is like, it's the world sort of doesn't have as much of an identity yet to like give me that information that this is sort of like working a job. I think my main reaction is it's a weird dream space.
So can I ask then, so I think that the reason that we didn't do that, and I'm curious if you have a thought of like how we could adjust this. If we did make it a numbers game, the fear was, or were more mundane, that the person wouldn't want to do it. And they'd be like, all right, I don't care if this person's bills get paid. Like I can just play with this dog. Like I'm in charge in this like virtual world. And we wanted the person to feel compelled to like score higher or like do something. So we wanted it to be like something compelling, so that the person would ignore the dog definitely, as a choice. So I think that was kind of where we were running into like a question of like, how do we engage the player while still, like telling the story correctly. I think we're struggling with like identifying how to reconcile.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but this round is about telling a story.
Story round.
Not about creating a game.
Right.
Okay, so worry more about having a really cool experience. And I think you can do that by having consequences. If the player decides to put the phone down and play with the dog, then that's the direction they took the experience. And they can, if they have fun or they enjoy playing with the dog, then you've done your job. But I would also have the phone ring back up and the message take on, and here's the boss saying you're fired.
Yeah.
You know, I throw in consequences. Or if you ignored the dog and played the game, at the end of the day, maybe you get a promotion. You know, so give some good and bad consequences for what people are doing in the game. But remember, it's an experience about storytelling. It's not about creating this really cool game that everyone's going to love and go, man, you got to play this game. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that, well, that gets to is like what is the world like? So one thing, don't be afraid to be a little more linear. Like give me like 30 seconds where there's no dog, there's no distraction. I'm just sort of like brought into the task of work, and there is no it is just focus on this. And I understand that my job is to do this, and like you give me nothing else, I'm going to do what you tell me to do. And then you can bring the dog in, and you don't have to make the dog an open-ended, you can do whatever you want with it. it can come in and it can leave quickly. Like you can control how much early on I have an opportunity to make choices. And I think one of the things also gets to is, what is the dog's character here? What is the dog trying to do? Is it just trying to get attention? Is it trying to save me? Like, is there like is it like the dog versus the boss? Like, is there sort of tension between those characters? Like, I would think of them as characters in your story, and what are they doing? Like, what is their motivation? Like, what would they do if I did that? Like, if I didn't pick up the phone, what would happen? If I didn't, go play with the dog, what would happen? And I think consider that from a perspective of character and motivation for these roles in your world. And then you can do stuff, like I said, where you don't introduce the dog until this moment, because the guest isn't ready for it yet, because it's not yet part of their story. And so you can pace it that way too.
I really like that. I really do like that, because you first you want to establish, okay, what am I doing? I'm hearing these numbers and I'm plugging them in. Okay, I got that. Now you need to establish, God, this is boring. And then comes the dog.
Yeah, and I think there's a question there. It's like, what is that moment? Where's that moment where the dog comes in? Why did the dog come in? What does it mean to the guest, and how does the guest understand that? And so I would break your world up into like story beats. Like, what are these moments that happen, and what do you want the guest to understand about that? Like, a ringing phone is a great introductory interaction. Like, every guest will pick up the phone, and it sets up a clear relationship, and it's a great way to sort of feed the guest instruction that is part of the world that pulls them in, gives them a role. The dog is a harder thing to use as a tool, but it's good. It has a sense of autonomy, but you have these two things, which are your major controls, which is the phone rings and tells me things, and the dog comes and does stuff. And it's up to you guys now to like say, we're going to use this now to tell this part of the story. We're going to use this now to tell this part of the story. And in theory, with a sequence of stuff, we will pull the guests through an experience where they go from utter confusion to buying into the idea they do work, to a realization that maybe this isn't what they should be doing, to fighting against the urge to do work, to finally freedom through the door or something like that. But I think that's the way you should approach this. Like, don't be afraid to be linear.
Okay. All right, that makes a lot of sense.
And I think, again, to like the world building, like, think about the sort of like the palette of what these things mean. And again, like, you might want to look at the audio palette, like this audio stuff, like the boss is very drony and you get these sound effects and it's this stuff. The dog is like, comes from a different space and might have a different sound to some degree. Visually, it might be different. Like, you might only use certain colors for where the dog comes from and only certain colors for where the boss comes from. But I think the more you can also tie sort of like the aesthetics to the separation, that will help as well.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Great. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Dave.
Exciting start. Good work, team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next team, I believe, is team 30. And if my cheat sheet is correct, team 30 is VR, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I think that's me. And team 30, working build. Is that right? Just want to make sure I've got the right build for this. All right, I'm going to see if I get this to work. Share that. All right, this look right?
Yes, it looks correct.
All right. His hands in that place. All right, let's do this. So, Canary, flap your wings forward to start. Sort of like, I'm gonna guess. So it's my wings look very vertical on my arms. I guess that's sort of like this. There we go. Should there be audio?
Wait. I think there's something wrong with it for some reason. Like at first there should be audio and there
Dave,
should be a
did you
room here.
yeah, Dave, did you open the one in working folder or interim folder?
This is.
Oh, it's in the interim, like the build
Yeah.
of the interim. You use the working one.
Okay. The notes said working. So this one
Oh,
says.
really? Oh, sorry. I think I
that's
updated it.
Okay.
okay.
I mean, this is the right one to run. I'll run this one. No problem.
Yeah, this one. Sorry about it.
Yeah, that was a link for testing, right?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, that's the testing one.
Yeah. So, okay.
All right. Flap wings forward. There we go.
Oh my goodness. Why must I suffer like this? I'm so tired of being locked in this castle, while my husband is off doing who knows what. I know for a fact he's doing something illegal to get us money. I know he has to support us, but at what cost?
I'm just a bird in a cage.
My dear canary, tell me, how am I supposed to escape? Ah, never mind. How stupid am I to think that my canary can respond to me? Ugh, look how dirty your cage is, my dear.
What?
Try to wave your wings and clean up the cage for me, will you?
All right. So, waving my wings, do something.
Oh, you cute little thing, look what you've done. You've gotten a spot of dust in my eye.
Should I?
I would love to hear some music from your beautiful wind chimes. That would make me feel better.
Wind chimes. Theory. To like.
I would love to hear some music from your beautiful wind chimes. That would make me feel better.
I feel like
you need to touch it. Like move forward a little bit, touch it.
There we go.
Oh, that's lovely. You made my day at least a little bit better.
Over there.
Yeah, that's actually what we have for now.
All right. Well, just being in the space, the wings, I really like just having the wings is an interesting way to make me. I clearly feel like a bird. There's a little bit of the fact that the wings are vertical, like gives me a little bit of, like it feels a little off. I really like how they match my arm. Like it's just interesting to like move my arms and sort of see the wings. But even from the beginning of like flap your wings forward, I want like a compromise where I don't necessarily need them to be like flat out for flying, but they
yes, I'll explain that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what we have for now.
All right, let's hop out. There we go. All right, so we're clearly a canary in a cage. And sort of like, there's this woman is our owner. And she sort of mentioned she's wondering where her husband is. And there's a little bit of like how to get out of this situation. I'm trying to like think back to the story. I feel like she was trying to escape. Her husband's doing illegal things. There's clearly a lot of stress here. And there's like, oh, but like canary, can you help me? And there's like, oh, silliness. Like, of course the canary can't really help. Definitely feels like there's a symmetry to the fact that we are in this cage and this woman is very trapped in her own cage. So I guess I'm kind of curious, where where is this going? Where does the story go from here?
Okay, so this is actually the very beginning of the story. So usually there will be a husband there who you see is a really bad guy, and then the woman's trying to escape from the woman, from the husband, and our job is to help the woman to escape. So the complete story will be you have two tasks as a canary. One task is to help the woman find the money that the husband is hiding somewhere in the room. You need to get the money, and then you need to get the woman out from the house, because as she said that her husband locked her down in the castle thing so that she will not be able to escape. So those two are the main tasks. And for the player interaction, there will be like two features. And yeah, that also counts for why I make the wing vertical for now, because so after this interim, we will make the bird be able to fly. So it's like horizontal. So if you flap, you will be able to move vertically. And then if you flap forward, that's another trick that you're going to use the wind to do something else in the future. And because currently we don't have the flying mechanism yet, so I make it vertical so that the player will not try to like, because if I make it vertical, it's very likely that you try to fly. That's why I say like flap forward as well to do that. So yeah, so in terms of the story, there will be two tricks. So one trick is, as you see, like we use the wind chime, and that's the thing that we used to unlock the money the husband is hiding in the room. So basically the trick is there's a lock in the room, and then the husband is gonna like say he has a piano or something, and then he'll play certain tone in a sequence like dun dun dun, and then that's gonna unlock it. But of course the woman will never see that, but we as the canary see that. And then we can use our wind chime to do the same sequence, and that's gonna unlock it and help the woman to get the money. And then to help the woman get out of the castle, that's another trick. So for that part, we're thinking there will be like candles on the desk, and then our job is to fly over there, and I use our wing flat forward to blow off some candle in some specific sequence. Say there are 5 vertically, and then you need to blow off the bottom one, and then the middle one, and then top one, and then the door will be unlocked. And then the woman will escape from her evil husband and probably take us as well. I don't know. But yeah, that's the story.
Okay, no, and I mean, I think you even in the world you mentioned the challenge of your story, which is how can a canary help me escape? And it sounds like you guys have thought through this of like what are things that a canary could do to help this woman. And I think it's kind of exciting. Like it's really interesting perspective. Even just talking through it, like man, like it's a lot. Like and getting the guests to those spaces, I think is going to be one of the challenges. Like how do you, for instance, just from a story perspective, how do you get the information into the guest's brain that this sequence gets played and that you know it, but the woman doesn't know it, but then you can tell it to her through this other way so she has it when she needs it, so she can do this thing. And from a, like in some sense, from a reality perspective, like if we have a sentient canary and they know that, then they just know that that's the thing. But man, it's a lot of like details for the guests to get. So I think that's one thing to watch for is you've got a weird story, right? The canary helps the woman escape. And so you're thinking of these story moments that make sense to support that, but it's making the world complicated. Like the husband has like created these sequence of locks, and like to unlock them, you need to do these things. But from the tools you've given me, sort of like the idea of using my wings to blow wind, and sort of the wind chimes, I think you've got the pieces to like pull this off. I think the challenge is like, it's a lot of this is an execution now. Like giving me those moments, like even just the idea of flying around the space, like if for me to control the flight so well I can get to the place I need to get to, is an execution challenge. And so I think I'd watch out for like the hidden work your story has, which is this stuff requires a level of execution just to get me into the role so I can do what you're asking me to do. The simple stuff you have me do though, like flap my wings to clean the cage. I felt a little, I felt a little offended that like the cage isn't clean. I'm sort of like, well, lady, like, what are you doing? Like, your job as my owner is to keep my cage clean, and you're yelling at me for it being dirty, and then you're making me clean it. So I was a little indignant at that moment. It's like, you're the human here. But it did a nice thing. I appreciate what you're doing, which was introducing the idea of wind and flapping. But you taught me that, and then you had me play on the wind chimes, but I had to actually touch the wind chimes. So you actually taught me to make wind, and then reverse that instruction on me, which is, oh yeah, wind chimes don't actually get affected by the general wind. They get affected by actual touching. So I would think hard about your verbs and be clear. And I think what you're going to need to do is, and I think just even like deconstructing this a little bit, like flap your wings to clean your cage, right? Then it implies that my wings have an area effect that covers the whole cage, right? It's a little windstorm that hits the whole cage. But then you give me this idea of precision with the wind chimes. And so I wonder, like, can I like aim my wind with the wing? Or is it an area effect that just happens in general? And I think you need interface to clarify that. Like if you're going to make it a tool that I use, give me feedback that says, okay, that's what happened. When you flap your wing, you see that little puff of air, that's what happened. And so that puff of air needs to hit the candle to make it go out. And so there's like just clarity of the interactions that need to happen for what you're proposing. And then I think, like I said, I would watch for the complexity, because even just in making this localized to the cage, there's stuff you have to like focus on to make that make sense and make that work. And so getting us out of the cage and getting the woman incorporated in the story and make that go has some things about scope that I'd be worried about. Ruth?
You've got a really complex story, and the user is not even a part of the story. So you're really going to have a good connection to the woman and a very bad connection to the man. So the man's got to do something to the bird. The man's got to do something to the woman to show that she needs to get away from him. And the man's got to do something to the bird to make the bird take the woman's side. And then the woman has to show love or connection to the bird to, again, control and increase that connection between the two. And then you're going to need to kind of like help the user through the entire story with the woman's dialogue. You know, if only I could find that money. I don't know where he hid it. Oh, only if you could help me. You know, you're really going to have to lead the bird by the nose through the storyline in order to get them to play along. And it feels like a very long story because you have so much to establish in the beginning, and then to teach them, oh, okay, I can do this with the wind chimes. And then how do I get out of the cage for the candles? And how did anybody know about the candles connected to the door unless the guy did something, unless the man did something to the candles in order to leave? So there's a long story here. And I would say, don't be afraid of leaving breadcrumbs.
Yeah, and actually to the point about the knowledge of the bird, I would think harder on the what can the canary do that the woman can't. And the canary has secret knowledge is a dangerous story thing to play with, because the canary is the guest. And of all the characters in this story, the guest has the least information. They have no idea what's going on. And so if you make the role of the guest to have secrets that no one else in the world knows, it's an inversion of the reality, which is the world has secrets the guest doesn't know. And so that means you have to have story tricks to get the guest into that secret space where they know stuff, which is work. And you can do it, but it's hard and it takes a lot of storytelling work. That's where you get a lot of expositions. Like, okay, we'll have a flashback scene where the canary saw the guy do this. And now the guest has to understand it's a flashback to this, to that. And I might look at ways to simplify what can the guest do that the woman can't. And one thing is the guest can fly, in theory, and it's small and get to places. And so the more you can match the guest's role to the guest's reality, the better your world becomes, just because it's easier to tell that story. So I would look at that balance too, of like, can you put the guest into scenarios where, because the guest can see from this vantage point, because the guest can fly, the guest can get to stuff that the woman can't. And I think that's sort of reflecting on your story and how do you tell it with the tools at hand. And that might save you some headache in your execution too.
Yeah, so actually, the reason why we decide to choose a bird is because we want in the storyline, you would think that a bird is insignificant, but actually is of great help. Yeah, that's why I think what we plan to do is the man will just ignore the bird and then showcase all the secret because it's just an animal. Yeah, but then in our whole story, we want to show that being insignificant can actually bring great impact. Yeah, that's why.
And I love that. I think that's a great thing. Now getting the guest to feel that is like, you got to get me to feel like a bird. You got to make me feel insignificant. And I think actually Ruth's comment about making the husband treat the bird poorly really comes into play here, because your goal is to make me feel overlooked and insignificant, or possibly even worse, disregarded in a way of not even considering me to be an animal, a life worth considering. And then the woman is clearly sort of asking the question, oh, how could a canary help me? But she thinks it's possible. I think within her dialogue, she's like, it's silly, but what if a bird could help me? Whereas the husband is clearly, I think, not even shown yet, but I think you want him to be not birds are this worthless bird. I don't even pay you any mind. So I think that's the right contrast. But talk about story, a lot of stuff to establish. You're gonna need to figure out how to be efficient with that, and be careful with information. So you could have the guest. I think the question is, how do you get the guest to a place where they know that, and there's information because of that they can use to help the woman? And information is just tricky in experiences, especially in VR. How do you can't just tell the guest, here's the combination, and then later in the world have them use the combination. Nobody will ever remember the combination. You can try that a million times. And so you need to make that information available when the guest needs it, but then you need to make it such that the guest feels like their role as the canary enabled them to know that when they needed it. And there's no clear verb and interaction that you just get that. Is it magical canary vision that lets them see the thing they remembered so they can point out the stuff? And I think that's where it gets to. These interactions are telling the story. So the story, if the story is just the canary flies to the top of the cage, it's really clear how you implement that. But the canary remembers the moment when the husband, inputted the combination and then reveals that to the woman when she needs it. That is a complicated interaction. So I think go through story moments, watch your scope. You've got a complicated story with possibly very complicated moments, and think through how you will build those out so they get what you want. I think it's great you guys know the story you want to tell. I love the characters and their motivation and how they fit in. I think those are good pieces. It's the challenge of using those pieces to get the guest into that story so they feel what you want to feel.
So yeah, I just want to talk more about the detail about our story. So we actually do have some detail that you guys mentioned. So for the husband, although we don't have the model, but we have the complete story. So say the husband would get inside and look at us, what a dumb bird, and then he'll spit at us, something like that. And then the woman will come to us, oh, the old poor guy or something like that. And that's going to make like our connection between two characters. And then for the part that you mentioned, like, so when the man, like say, play the sequence, he would do like animation like this and then look around, okay, no one's here, no one's around, but we are around. But he would say no one's around. And then he'll carefully and slowly, and he'll talk to himself, left, right, middle. And then he will mumble himself, and then that's how we let the player remember it. And then after he leaves, the woman comes out, and then the woman will say, I know he's hiding somewhere, but I'll never know the trick. How about you, Canary? Or something like that. So that's how we're gonna lead the story too. Is that what you guys like meant?
That's plausible. I mean, there's a chance that guests either like there's like the three paths, right? The guests will see that, feel it, and not remember it, even if it happens like 10 seconds after they see it. Like VR is notorious for like just wiping your memory instantaneously. There's a chance that they will feel like they're being like it's kind of being forced on them, like very like obvious in the storytelling, which could turn them off. And then there's the middle ground, which is like it just flows beautifully. So I think it's a good approach. It sounds like it's you're asking a lot in terms of animation and sort of acting. So I think watch that and then try it. It might just work. My general advice is be careful with combinations and separation between understanding it and then needing to do it, because there's a failure case. What happens if the person forgets? What does the world do?
Do you think it may be weird if we light up the wind chime that they need to touch, like make it like glowing? Do you think that's weird in VR, or do you think that they work?
VR. Go ahead, Ruth.
Try it.
Yeah, try it.
That's good.
I think this it's execution. And this is where it's clearly like I guess is in your world, they know it's VR. They are expecting some level of interface. It's not a perfect, mimicry of the real world. So if you have magical interface, I see wind coming from my wings to help me understand that it's affecting things. That all can fit together. It's more about just consistency and clarity rather than reality.
One of the problems with VR is that you cannot guarantee exactly what the guest is looking at any point in time. Where computer screen, you have complete control over what they're seeing. So you got to plan out that environment just right to ensure that where the guy is and how he's using those notes and what he's unlocking and what he's doing is in the visual and the player's looking at them. But then if you want also for that bird to also see the chimes being affected, then that also has to be in the vision at that time. So there's a lot of things to line up, and then you got to make sure that you get the player looking.
Yeah. And one other thing to consider is let's say your world hinges and the final moment is the unlocking with the piano. One thing you can do is, can you have a moment earlier than that, which introduces that action in another way? So for instance, this probably isn't what your world would do, but let's say your world, the canary could see fingerprints, could see where people touch things. And you use that power to sort of know the combination for the piano. What I would do is I would have the canary use the ability to see fingerprints early in the world to do something a little more mundane, to introduce that role and that power. So you might teach me this is how you remember, or this is how you use your memory to do something earlier, so I can do that later and I understand that role with more clarity. And one of the things it does is it avoids a scenario where in this pivotal moment in your world, the guest is learning something new and learning a new way to interact with the world. If you have a big moment that you really want the guest invested in, it's better if they've been taught that interaction and that role earlier. So when they get to the big moment, it feels more like it's coming from within them, like they figured it out on their own and they're doing it on their own accord, as opposed to being told and taught it at that moment. So you might also want to consider separating, in some sense, the moments which are about teaching and the moments which are about sort of execution, and save teaching for less like momentous parts, and execution for parts where you really want the guests to feel in the moment what they're doing. But I think great start. Like I said, you know your roles. I think you know your story, and it's exciting. I think the idea of being a canary and like solving this woman's abusive relationship and setting her free can be really compelling. So just watch your scope, and trust yourselves on knowing the story, because I think you guys have a good handle on this.
Dave, is there a requirement that the story have 2 components, 2 steps?
No.
Then I wonder, you guys, you only have a week and you've got so much to develop just to get the relationships right to begin with. Do you really need the get the money and unlock the door? Do you have enough of a story with the relationship and get the money? Just something to think about.
Yeah, that's true. Well, if we don't have time, we'll just do one mechanism and then say the money just in the room, and then the woman just take the money, and then we unlock the door and she'll leave. So yeah, it depends on how much we can get.
Yeah, I think I would, as a team, look hard at your story and your scope, and it is, you guys, like I said, you guys know your story well enough that I think you guys could edit it and keep the story, keep it what you want it to be. And a general good thing to remember is, this is, you know, in terms of like creating an experience for guests, for other people, they'll never know what you cut. So if you tell them a complete story that only involves getting the money, like no one will ever know. I mean, aside from everyone here right now, will know what you cut. So don't be afraid to edit thinking that you're going to diminish what you're making. Remember that it's what you deliver and what the guest experiences is the true story. So yeah, I think watch your scope.
Sure.
Cool. All right. Great work, team. And good work for the first 3 teams. Then we're going to transition over to the next 3. So that would be Team 31. And Team 31 is networked, right?
Yep.
All right. So let me pull that up. And how do we want to, this is Team 31 is 2-player network?
Yep. Yep.
I'm looking at my folder here. Team 31 interim demo in the interim folder. Is that right? Looks right.
We actually had an error. I think the build actually got deleted. But we have a G drive upload. If it's possible, we could do that.
I mean, so the thing in Perforce is working for me. Is that not right?
Lewis and Wizard, could you guys elaborate on?
Yeah, sorry. That was the build that we had for the TAs when we did the playtesting. We did a new build and we pushed it here into the G drive, but the build that pushed to Perforce didn't work. It didn't get pushed to Perforce, but it was pushed to D drive properly.
So you guys want me to, Ruth, are you able to download Team 31 from G Drive?
Yeah, I downloaded it, but the application file is only 84 kilobytes. It's like, that's amazing. Let's see here. Okay, let's try that.
Space and 4.
Yeah.
All right. Download this.
Okay, I got something to run. Mirror.
Mine's downloading right now. And we are going to be sharing one screen, correct?
Yes. And share the screen of whoever entered the world first.
All right.
Okay, you want to enter the world first?
I'm extracting right now. I'm happy to share my screen. So I'm going to share screen now. Get this going and run this. All right, that look right?
Looks good, yeah.
Alice. Hi. I wonder if you still remember me now. I don't know if you ever noticed the invisible mirror around you. I forgot the mask and the smoke have blurred your eyes. But I can see your desire. It grows and expands like a rose. Let me tell you who you are. Welcome to the world in the mirror.
Right. What are we going to do? I can only smash mirrors. Pay attention on the blackboard. All right, WASD and punch. I got a fist over here. Destroy mirrors. You're not alone. It's kind of ominous. Are there any mirrors around here? I'm gonna walk forward, go through here. I love the lighting. I have this ability to punch, and I'm like wondering when I'll be able to use it. I feel short. There's a door. I don't think I can go through. I mean, I have but one tool, which is punch, but I don't see any mirrors. Are these mirrors? So. There, is this a mirror over here? This is where I started. I can see mirrors, but haven't yet. I changed the chalkboard. Oh. I'm guessing that the mirrors are somehow connected to the other guest. So I'm.
Okay, I found one.
Ooh. I'm guessing, Ruth, are you typing? I assume you're it feels like you might have control over the blackboard here.
Yes, I have control over the blackboard. I was trying not to say that. Okay, so now how I need to tell you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth desk.
And is there like a hidden mirror on one of these desks I have to punch?
1, 2.
Bloody handprint on these desks? Oh man, what happened in here? Fourth desk. Third from. Found it!
Right, we got one.
Yes. And is our Huawei done now?
Yeah, that's all we have so far.
Is everything?
Yeah.
All right. Whew. I'm guessing the guests are not meant to be connected through audio, through voice. Is that true?
Yes. The second player should only use the blackboard.
Should the second player be able to hear the first player?
Yes.
Okay, so you want the first guest to talk and be able to say stuff, but the second guest is silent and can communicate through the blackboard.
Yes.
Okay. Let me cancel out of that. Where are we? Stop share.
So I was trying not to talk to Dave because I figured that you didn't want us to speak to each other since you gave us the blackboard to speak with each other.
Yeah, that's true.
Now I enjoyed that, but every time I click on the blackboard, what was previously written is erased. So I started off by trying to tell Dave what was going on, that I could see the mirrors. And I don't think he saw my first messages because you can only type so much. You can't type a book. So it's a big blackboard.
And I was so the message was like, look at the blackboard. So I looked at the blackboard. It's like, oh, there's a message on the blackboard. And then it didn't occur to me to keep watching it.
Yeah.
And then I sort of happened to look up again. It's like, oh, it changed. Oh, wait a second. I kind of get this now.
Yeah.
And then
I
there was a
think
time where the text on the blackboard looked incomplete. I was like, did it? And part of it was like, did Ruth type in something that was longer than the text buffer? And I don't know. And so there was a little bit of a question of some the technical arrangement here of the blackboard is a way to communicate text from one guest to the other. What it means for it to change. I really liked, I think there was a moment where I was watching it and Ruth, you were typing and I saw the words appear. So the fact that it was live helped a lot. And I think it's just a thing to appreciate about an interface like this is there's a lot to explain to the guests. And the fact that the letters show up live on my screen says there's another person typing and they're communicating with me. And that was much more meaningful than anything you told me through the desk and what to look at. And I think there's a little bit of how do you get that moment to happen early? I think if you could, that's the moment you want, right? You want the one guest to see the other guest typing and see the words appear and realize there's an intelligence on the other side of that blackboard communicating.
Yeah.
I think that's,
I can comment on those two things. So the blackboard erasing every time you start again was my fault because we changed from normal text to text mesh pro. So that involved different coding. Originally, it does stay the same, so you can just continue where you left off and you have to erase to get back to the original. And then for the blackboard, seeing it update live, there is sound. So when Ruth types, you should be able to hear it and it'll update. And then it's spatial, so you should hear that there's a writing noise coming. So that should draw your attention to the blackboard, but we were playing around with the volume, so that's why probably
and I think to be fair, right now with Unity, Unity worlds are playing through the Oculus, and audio through Zoom is playing through my speakers. So I'm in a little bit of a space where audio is for the desktop is a little hard for me to hear. But I think sound effects is a great strategy, particularly because chalkboards have a sound. And you can the cue of someone's writing on the chalkboard. I think you could put 10 people in a playtest and say, what's the sound? And they would all get it. So it's a good natural cue to use. I wouldn't worry about spatializing it. Like what does it help you to have the guest be at the back of the room and struggle to hear it?
Yeah.
Because there's only one blackboard in this room.
And you ruined a great joke. Because when I realized that Dave didn't have access to the blackboard, the first thing I wrote was, "Hi, Dave."
But I think, and then I think that's what you guys want, like that moment of like, because your world. So one, like we get to the story of the world. Your world is eerie, and it's somewhat serious, and it's about but it's also about two real guests cooperating, and so you need that humanity. I think the question is like that moment of that connection and realization. How does that fit your two stories? Because you have two stories here. You have the story the world is telling in the sense of like, there's this kind of weird story about helping someone help the other person see their true self. And then there's a story of two guests trying to play this world and figure out what the hell's going on. And if they diverge too much, then one story will dominate, right? And I think the danger is the world ends up being confusing, and the guests sort of play with their interface with each other, and it's a game of just, it's just a game of like communicate where the mirrors are and talk through this blackboard and just do it. And I guess I kind of wonder what story do you want to have happen?
So the basic synopsis of the story, I guess, is that this girl, she was bullied a lot in class, and then so she tried to become popular by doing a lot of things she didn't like. And then so now there's like two sides to her. There's the person who is trying to act popular, and the person who just wants to be herself. So both players like take control of one of those, so they're actually the same person, and then they have to help each other. And then in the end, there's like a dream sequence. We want to like wake up and see the reflection in the mirror. Because Ruth can actually see like your silhouette, so ideally we want it to be like she's helping you, but actually she's also you. Like she'll see it in the end.
So given that, what would you want? Like what should Ruth write on the blackboard? So for instance, typing "Hi Dave" doesn't necessarily fit your story, because in this world I'm not Dave.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, actually, they enjoyed like they have both the video clips of "Hi Alice," so actually at the beginning we're giving the hint like they are both Alice.
So I think I knew what was going on because I saw on my screen that it said that I had the ability to see the mirrors and to write on the blackboard. And I saw on Dave's shared screen that he had the ability to smash the mirrors. So I had too much information. And if I didn't have that extra information, I understood how both players' roles were. But I knew that Dave didn't have my screen. So he did not know what both players' roles were. So it's important to hook someone into a game or into an experience. So for me, I had to figure out where I was, how to move, where the blackboard was, how to write on the blackboard, and that I needed to find the mirrors and communicate all of that to him. And I felt the pressure of time because he's walking around going, okay, I like the lighting. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can smash, but what can I smash? I can't see anything. So he's getting bored. So I'm trying to communicate with him like, hey, no, this is our connection. I'll find the mirror and you smash the mirror. So yeah, it's really important to keep those old messages up or to give me a bigger buffer. So that, because I wasn't, every time I'd hit that buffer limit and I'd go, okay, now let me see if I can I'd move to another part of the blackboard and I'd start writing, but it would erase what was on the other part of the blackboard. So I couldn't communicate with him what it was we were supposed to do together. If I didn't have that, I don't know that I would have understood that. I wouldn't have known that he had to smash the mirrors that I could find.
Yeah.
So might need to work on that a little bit more.
Well, and I think this sort of gets to the two guests and their roles. Right now, we have very mechanical roles, which are defined by our interface, which is I have an interface which says I can walk and smash. And so I am a walking, smashing robot in your world right now, which is I've got like one tool, smash windows. So I'm looking for windows to smash. And when I smash a window, I'm like, I did it. I achieved my goal, which was to smash windows. And Ruth, that sounds like you have you can write on the blackboard and you can see mirrors. And so like together we can mechanically, do this task, which is get mirrors to smash. The next challenge in this world is get us into this story. And I think, like I said, this gets to the question of what do you want Ruth to write on that blackboard? And is there a way to get that interaction to go beyond just find and smash mirrors and get us to understand what it means to smash a mirror, what it means to lead the other guests to that mirror, in the context of the story, but also in the context of the roles we're playing. And I think that's right now you have an ambitious story, and I'm not too sure with the tools you've given me what I'm going to do to get me to understand the story better. And so I guess one question is, how many mirrors are there to smash, and does it change?
There was like actually three mirrors for this part, and the first one is like directly a mirror, which represent that the Alice forced herself in putting up makeup to become popular or something. And the second is gonna smash a beer bottle, and that will represent that Alice used the drinking to like overcome something, and she also needs to smash that. And the second one is the third one is like a window by the classroom, and that is like after Alice was caught by some other bad students and trumped at the next course and throw the stones at the windows, something like destroyed the classroom and ran away and felt guilty about it. And every time after our guests smash this will have a flashback memory of the things that it represents. And for that, our player one is the outer Alice, that she is a dominant, like she has the power to make some change, but that she didn't realize that she's been living like this and she's not happy about it. And our second player is like the inner Alice, that she sees everything and she knows that the true Alice don't want this. She's not happy about it. So she can see the mirror, but she has no power because she cannot change anything. And
Right.
yeah, and after the three mirror or the three stuff has been smashed, we wanted a progression of the story that maybe this time our player one and player two will come in between the same thing, and there will be a big mirror or a door or something in front of them, and this door will have this flashback on the mirror and have a true Alice and a fake Alice. And the player one and the player two should do something at the same time to break the fake Alice so that they can win this game. And they will wake up and find out they are both Alice.
Well, I mean, so I love the fact that you got this thought out. I think that this is an ambitious story. So that's the story you want the guests to go through. I think the next challenge you have is the experience the guests sort of interact through. And I think your idea of this final moment is like a strong way to approach this. I would say your goal is like that first mirror smashing is the guests understanding the world. Like, okay, it's connecting that we work together to do this. And it's fine for that moment to be kind of mechanical. It's like, yay, we smashed a mirror. And then when we see what that means, we now understand what it means to smash a mirror. Okay, so second mirror, we're not just smashing a mirror, we're trying to get more understanding of the story. We know smashing a mirror advances the story in some sense. And so through that idea, you can sort of tell the story of what the guests are thinking, right? And I think that's the challenge you have now, is to map out these moments and how the guests change with each moment, to the point at the end where they're not smashing a mirror, they are telling a story together in that final moment. Like that's your progression, right? Guests go from confusion a little bit about what they're doing to understanding the interface and the mechanics, to understanding their role in the story, to acting out their role in the story, to finally moving the story to its conclusion through their own shared understanding. Like that's kind of your guest journey. And I think that's the now like the big challenge, is moving the guests through that and basically tying those stories together. And so I would think hard about how do your guests change after each mirror smash? How do you make that change happen? How do you actually get them to understand that and then be different? I would look at your world. How does the world change? Can you make it clear? Can you give them feedback? Like right now, when I get a cutscene, it tells me a lot about the world, not just the story in the moment, right? Oh, smashing a mirror is meaningful in this world. And it's a moment of revelation to the characters about this. And so look at, I think, bringing in a little more storytelling beyond the cutscenes. Like, does the classroom change? Do I see different things? Can you sort of layer stuff in and things like that? But that's your big challenge, is getting the story to be expressed through the interactions of the guests and going from I don't know what I'm doing all the way to in this final moment we're working together to resolve this story as these characters in this moment. But and it sounds like you have an idea of what that story wants to be. So you have the tools you need. Now it's just a matter of like finding that sequence. I would not be afraid to cut this down to 3 moments of interaction. The first mirror tells me how this world works. The second mirror gets me to exercise that understanding in a way that's a little more story integrated. And the last one is that final, in theory, the guests are working together to do this intentionally to resolve the story. So I would try to minimize, cut it down to just absolute minimum of what you need to get that full arc for the guests.
I liked what you were trying to do with the lighting, but it was very difficult for me to find the mirror. So it is the finding of the mirrors really an integral part of the experience? If find the mirror, communicate the mirror, and then smash the mirror is really important, then what would it really damage the experience if the mirror had a glow, or if the mirror had some kind of effect that made them really easy to find? Think about how important to the experience in the story is the difficulty of finding the mirrors. And then the first one, I would probably make the first one, since like Dave was talking about the first one being more like a tutorial, I'd make the first one really easy to find. It's either easy to see and right away from the beginning where it is, or it's really close to the blackboard, because that person is going to go towards the blackboard to try to figure out that mechanic. And I don't remember on your instruction screen whether you said that my character could see the mirrors, or whether you said that only my character could see the mirrors. But if you
can see the mirrors.
Okay, yeah. Making sure that I understand that I'm the only one that can see the mirrors, that helps to create that connection between the two of us.
Cool. But I think you guys have a great start. You guys have an ambitious story to tell. But I like the direction you're going in. So I think keep pushing on this. There's some like clear things to think about and iterate, but yeah, the asymmetry of these two guests like working together to tell the story is a cool idea. So keep pushing on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Okay. Next team. Team 32. Team 32 is VR. I have that right?
Yes.
All right. And I'm guessing I'm going to be doing final test build game in the interim folder, not test build game.
Yes. Do the final one.
All right. Let me share my screen and get this going. This out of the way.
Nisa, come and sit down. It's time to get your food binding.
All right. There was seemed to be audio at the beginning. How important was it that I hear that? I'm gonna
That is more
restart.
like a storyline track.
That's
So
very important.
Nisa, come and sit down. It's time to get your food binding.
All right. I think I sort of heard that. It's time. I was told to come and sit down. And I'm guessing over there where there's a table, looks like a bowl of rice. My quick guess. I've got some hands here. I'm looking over there and I'm like, how do I get over there? I got my feet. I'm very sure that if I tried to walk there, I would smash into a wall. So I'm going to try. There we go. I have a thumbstick. Yeah. Ooh, look at me. I'm very amused by the shadow on the feet. Here we go. Getting closer. Man, I am short. Must be like a little kid. Can I sit down? Can I reach up?
we haven't finished all the voice guidance yet, so I think you're supposed to go into the room.
Oh, there's an open door here.
Yeah, because the voice line hasn't finished yet.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna make my way slowly over here. It's a little weird. Like I feel like a zombie with my hands walking straight out. This way. All right. Now.
Okay, now stand up and walk around. You need to get used to it.
Ooh. Okay, so now I'm told to stand up and walk around. I mean, I need to get used to it. I'm really curious what it is. I like noticing, like I sort of look down. My body has changed. My feet look different. They are a little more pointed, and the steps are different. So like I'm walking slowly. It's, I mean, so the walking, I'm very floaty, which is sort of an interesting feeling. Like just noticing like the feet sliding a bit on the ground.
I mean, the overall game, like including the cutscene and the story connection, it hasn't finished yet. So like this part of the walking is supposed to be after you done the fit binding and your feet is like crashed. So you walk really strangely. You try to get comfy with the state. And we have a story game flow list in our folder that mainly express about it. So that's basically much it. We just basically finished the world building and the character modeling, but the story we're gonna do it later this week. But we have a file ready to discuss about the story.
All right. So should I get out of VR then?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the VR that we want to demonstrate.
Sweet. It's that. All right. Do you guys want to share the story stuff then?
Okay, for sure. Give me a second. Sorry about it. Let me sure. Yeah. So this is basically what we trying to do. We're trying to do traditional about like a really old Chinese tradition about foot binding, that because in like in Qing dynasty or like even before, they consider when a girl has like a little feet, they consider it as really, you know, how to say that, adorable or like attractive. So this is mainly talk about the last typically the last, like probably the last girl who got the feet binding, and it's a process of you know, seeing herself feet got wrapped binding by her family due to the tradition they believe, even though the tradition is really bad, and we want to let the player experience the whole process. So it's more or less it's less interaction just beside walking, but more of storytelling. We need to do the cutscene, we need to do the animation. We also have another model for grandma, like the little kid grandma, that will also help the kid to do the foot binding. And yeah, I wonder if my group mate can help me to reinforce that.
Yeah, I think you described most of it. Yeah, and so last week we were just like spending time to figure out like the mechanics with VR, like about the full body like tracking stuff. I mean, it's not a full body, but we try to like attach like the entire like body model to the VR to get it work. And we might still like adjusting some of the feet movement when the girl is walking.
Well, and I think I think the story you're telling is really interesting and ambitious. Like part of the excitement, but also the challenge is this is a story fundamentally about feet, walking, and culture, and sort of like cultural expectations and norms. And it's a like, man, like just that intersection with VR, like VR and feet do not get along very well at all. Like VR loves the head and the hands, but man, the feet get no love. So like that's exciting, but it's also like one of your big challenges. Like you said, this world is basically about walking, and on one level that's simple, but on another level it's super challenging. But I think that's a challenge worth going for. So in your world, like you did some really good stuff. Like you gave me a body, and like I naturally looked down, and I noticed. I mean, I was very cautious of the feet, like because you gave me that body, and sometimes I think because like I'm using the joystick, I'm looking at that. I'm paying attention to that. The shadow, like the fact that you gave me a shadow, like drew my looking at the shadow. So I think you're already doing some strong things to get my attention to the space. So that's good. The thing that's, I think your next big challenge is getting me to feel what walking feels like. And this is where VR is not your friend, because experiencing this world, walking didn't feel like walking. It felt like gliding with an animation playing on my feet. And I think this is where your world needs to possibly take on this challenge and like understand some of the complexity. There's a lot more to walking than just moving through space and moving my legs. And it's the pace of it. It's the bobbing of the head and the body. And I think there's dynamics to the walking that you may want to like look at really seriously, and see if you can use those pieces of it to get me to feel like I'm walking, and then feel like I'm walking differently. And I feel like that's one of your big transitions here is I walk in this way, and I walk, you know, I feel free, I feel like casual, I feel like comfortable. And then in this phase, walking is restricted, it's painful, it's different, it's bad. And I think your goal here seems to be you want that to be conveyed through the world and just through the act of walking, and then reinforced with like the voiceover and the storytelling. But your ambition is to get the guest to feel that. And I think there's a big maybe there. But I guess I'd push you guys to go for it. Can you get me to feel the walking and feel differently when you make the walking different? And the like using the thumbstick, I think it's a fine compromise. It's once I know it, I can use it. And it didn't like it was fine. Like moving the guest through the space attached in VR, like there's things about like making it more comfortable and stuff like that. I'm honestly like I'd push you guys to not worry too much about some of the VR comfort issues of like, you know, just giving me a joystick control through the space. And if you can get that motion of walking and get me to feel it, I think that would be a big accomplishment. And I think if you could center your storytelling there, that'd be powerful too. The arms felt a little awkward because I don't know what to do with them. It sounds like you get me to a place where I will use my hands, so that might take away some of the awkwardness. But I would sort of want to sort of get a feel for that when that happens. And then the storytelling through the voiceover and the characters, it sounds ambitious. And so I'd be nervous about scope, and I'd be wondering just the trade-offs between making the walking feel the way it needs to feel versus filling out characters and acting. And I would wonder if there's ways to be efficient about that. Ruth?
VR is so much about the hands and is rarely ever about the feet. So make sure that you draw a lot of attention to the feet right from the beginning, so that you're setting the guest up to know, okay, this is about them, not these things. And be mindful of the shadow. The shadow is really important to your story, but make sure that the shadow is painting the picture that you want to paint. I noticed the one comment that popped up about, oh, the shadow looks like the guy from Airbender. That's not what you want. So be really mindful of that shadow and make sure it's pointing or painting the picture you want it to paint, because it is the looking glass into your storyline. And in the beginning, allow for the user to get used to the environment and the controls before you give them their first instructions.
Well, and I think especially that beginning is interesting because this is going to be a word about contrast. And like the beginning, like I my feet, I think I just had like on sandals, right?
Yeah, kind of. It's more controlled by the. I'm not really familiar with the control, but it's more controlled by the VR sandal.
Well, I mean, from a story perspective, my character at the beginning is like I don't know. My interpretation was I'm wearing things that are comfortable, and I'm especially on my feet. My feet are comfortable.
Yeah.
Actually, the character is wearing nothing on her foot. She has the barefoot.
Barefoot, even better, right? So this is the beginning is like I get to experience like comfort. Is that fair?
Yes, it's more like a contrast.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how can you have the guest walk and experience walking in comfort? And I would wonder, like, is there like, do you make me run? Do I like, is there something about the walking particularly? And the beginning of this world was not about walking. The beginning of the world was about exploring the world around me and seeing what's there. And you gave me instructions about going to sit down even. And so I would encourage you guys to flip it. Make the beginning about walking, right? And keep it simple, but keep it direct. Like don't, like if you want me to experience that contrast, have me do something that is focusing me on the fact that I am walking and enjoying walking.
Do you have any suggestion on that? Because right now, to show that she's walking like really freely, we're trying to, adjusting the animation and like the walking pace. So like she's walking really fast at the beginning. Is there anything else that you would suggest us to add to, reinforce the feeling?
Well, so if we could, use magic and give you guys an infinite amount of time, what I would want is I would want just the act of walking to be fun to do. So if you play a game and like the Mario series, Nintendo is really good on just the game feel of how Mario controls. Like Mario 64 is kind of famous for just like the freedom and fun of just moving around in the space. I would sort of want the game feel of the walking interface to feel free, feel fun. So my first thought would be have my character jog. Like this character isn't just walking. And in fact, the walking felt sort of stiff and measured already.
The problem is we cannot move the upper part of the body. So like there's lots of limitation to the movement. Like we would like to make her run and like, like jump maybe, but then if the body moves up and down, like the camera will be really like, it will be really hard for the player to have.
Yes. I mean, this is why you guys have a hard world, because I am not walking as a guest, right? I am not actually, I'm standing still. I have to stand still because I'm in VR and I can't do what you're asking me to do. And somehow you want to get me to feel that that's something else. I would try some stuff. I mean, I don't know. I would try stuff. I would try not tracking my hands. Like I felt like I didn't know what to do with my hands in the world. So maybe you don't, like, I have no idea, but maybe in the moments where I'm walking around, you don't have the hand controllers track and control my arms. It's just about the body. Maybe you do bob things. Maybe you do like kind of move the camera in ways that might make me uncomfortable. I'm not too sure exactly what word. Like I said, you guys are pushing on something that VR doesn't usually do, which is trying to make walking be a core interaction, not just in terms of locomotion to get somewhere, but to tell the story of a character and feeling. And so you're going to have to, I think, do things that VR normally doesn't do. A thing you might do. I mean, one of the ways to test this is put on VR and give yourself a little bit of space and try walking yourself around in the limited space you have and just see what it looks like and feels like. And then the question is, can you make someone use the joystick to get that motion? I don't know. I think this, like I said, this is an interesting challenge.
Your first instruction is to go to the table. But when you tell me to do that, my eyes look at the table and focuses on the table because that's where I'm going. And you may want to try focusing more on the feet.
Yeah.
To bring the feet into the story. So if you think about if you think about games that focus on feet, in my culture, the first thing I'm thinking of is hopscotch. Because I'm looking down at tiles on the ground that I'm stepping on. So if you can't run and you can't jog, then maybe, bringing it back to the culture that the story is from, what about a garden where you're following a path, you're stepping over stepping over something, stepping from stepping stone to stepping stone. Come up with some things that you can look down and focus on your feet and focus where you're stepping and make that feel natural and easy so
Yeah.
that later you can make it feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think, and it's possible just like following a path, and like especially a path that has distinct spots where the feet will go, and it's like just a little. My job is just to like follow the path around and like it's where it goes. It might lead to the door. Like paths in VR are powerful. People will probably like tend to follow them. The other thoughts are like stepping stones, but like things that give me a reason why the walking is both important and also possibly why it's distinctive. Like for instance, if you had me walk across stepping stones to get across a small stream, not necessarily that it fits your world exactly, but it would make a lot of sense to me why my feet are being controlled the way they are and why it looks and feels a certain way. And that might be something worth really strongly considering, is you're building your world around footsteps. And like, what are the footstep patterns of being comfortable and free? What are the footstep patterns of being, in pain and restricted? And I guess I wouldn't be afraid to sort of like take away some control from the guest so that you can have me experience that more directly.
Okay. Yeah. So just one last question is, so between this, so it's more about what you're suggesting is more about to enhance the importance and the crucial part, also the feeling of walking normally and creating that contrast to the guest, so that the story itself and the emotion hit after you cannot walk normally can make more sense to the guest, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that contrast is a great storytelling technique. Like if you can, if like your story could possibly just become that contrast. And if you can get me to feel it, like this is where simplicity is your friend. If I have a scene where I'm free and I feel it, and then I have a walking moment where I feel the how restrictive and sometimes like how painful it is, then you've sort of achieved your sort of emotional goal. And now you can use your story to connect consequence and meaning to that. And that's could be really powerful storytelling. So I think you sort of showed that sequence, a bunch of sequences. Your world could possibly be simplified down to walking freely, walking like the guest needs to understand that their feet get bound, and sometimes why that happens and how that happens, and then they experience walking with their feet bound, and then they sort of understand like the consequences of that and the reality of that, and that could be enough for your complete story. But I think that emphasis on the walking is where, I mean, that's where your world is especially unique for VR. So how it's an unknown. Like this is kind of a risk for your world. How do you get the guest to feel that through this interface? And I guess it's ambitious, it's exciting, and it's going to take some iteration.
Thank you, Dave and Ross.
But great start. I think like I said, you have an ambitious story here. I'm excited to see how you pull this all together.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks guys. All right, last world of the morning, and that would be Team 33, which according to my cheat sheet, is a VR world. Is it working in VR, or is this just a desktop experience right now?
Yeah, you can use VR now.
Okay. And I'm looking at the Perforce folders. I see Spy01 and Spy VR.
Use the VR one.
That was my guess. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share screen. All right, is there, let me just sort of make sure I've got it running. I can hear things. Let's do this again. All right.
Yeah, actually we haven't finished our work, so for now you can just pick up the box, the cube in front of you. Yeah,
All
only
right.
actually you can do.
The heads up,
But you
my
can
world.
You can walk around, right?
Yeah, you can walk around. Oh, you can. I suppose you can grab the cube.
Be very gentle here. We're in dangerous outside my boundary space at the moment.
Oh, you
So
can use
I'm very gingerly reaching under my monitor to grab stuff.
you can use a joystick to control the.
Oh, whoa. So I can. There we go. And so I can grab the cubes.
Yeah, you can only grab the cubes.
Okay. Well, the world is very intriguing. I'm just, so like I got cubes, and the cubes like say Oculus on them, so I'm like they just don't feel like part of the world.
It's just for testing. It's not part of world.
But this machine over here is especially intriguing.
Later we can make it for interact, but not now.
Yeah. And then like there's this big red chair behind me. I know that the space has a lot has a lot of interesting like pieces to it, and I'm like, what am I gonna do here? And then I'm looking out, and there's like this. I'm also I feel like I'm in a bar, but it's not a bar because a bar wouldn't have this weird device on it. I'm sort of wondering, like, I can see out beyond me. There's like this fireplace and this living room, and then there's a TV over there. No, I'm very curious.
Yeah, we can share our storyboard.
All right, so there's a storyboard we want to look at.
Yeah. Force.
Oh, which one should I grab?
The story interaction, yeah. Laura, do you want to take over this?
Oh yeah, sure. Right. So the premise is you're the top spy at this agency, and you're like being sent in on like a mission, and there's like it just seems like a normal mission to like stop the president of this evil country, and there's like a twist at the end. So the game starts like with like the folder of your mission, and then you like start in the environment, like in front of the desk. So you have to like walk around to like the place you started at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can go to the next page. And then I made some screenshots of our interactions. So like one of them would be hiding from a guard that comes in.
Duck.
So yeah, you get like a voice cue, and then you like listen to hear the footsteps go away.
Really quickly, the narration. Where's that coming from?
Oh wait, you have like an earpiece.
Okay.
That has like, yeah.
So there's a character in my head, in my earpiece, like, hey, I'm helping you. Do what I say, effectively.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, do that.
And so you're in like this place, and you need to find these clues to open the safe in the desk. So there's clues like hidden around like in this book, on the mug, and like this icon on the desk. And then once you get the clues, you can open the safe, and there's like document inside. The document's like this button where this like weapon is about to fire, and you can use this device in here to stop it. So like, and then like the guest will want to like hit the button to like stop it, and then it's like it's a trap, and scary things happen. There's like a countdown, and your like evil villain voice.
And then, oh, and then
This is kind of like an extra, but yeah, like another interaction be like you punch the guard.
this is not after we actually activate the
Oh
weapon.
no, yeah, like this is in order. Like after it activates, like someone comes in and you have
Okay,
to,
guard.
like, yeah, and then a puzzle will appear on the same screen, and then you walk over and solve the puzzle, and you'll like have some like earpiece stuff to like help you along with the story, and it's like you did it, you saved the world, and like a helicopter will come in and like rescue you.
All right. So we're sort of in this spy world. I guess from the beginning, where are we and who are we? Like, what is this room? And like, who are we as the guest, and who's like, and I'm not saying at the end of this, but at the beginning, what do we understand, and what is the voice in our ear? Who are we, and what room are we in? What space is this?
Yeah, you're like the like top secret agent at like a generic secret agent agency, and you're like it's like would be explained like as the folder opens, like this is your mission. You go to president of evil country's office.
Okay, so we are,
yeah.
There's an evil country, and this is their office. Okay, so we're on a mission. Okay.
To like, I guess, investigate and like look for like things related to their plans. So you don't know what you're looking for when you enter the environment. You just know you're like looking for something, and you'll be told you have like a like person helping you.
Well, and I mean the story you have set up here is it gives you a lot of room to explain stuff. Like the idea that there's a briefing. Like for instance, it's very a trope for spies, right? You don't know what you're going to do, but you're going to get this briefing, which gives you just enough you need to know to understand your mission and make that happen. So I think you've got a good fantasy that affords explanation, right? I think that intro, that setup is going to work well. It'll help get the guests into their fantasy, into their role. The question will just be, how much do you need to tell, and like what world building do you need to establish to make all this, to get this going? And I feel like you've got the right scale here, like spy agency, evil dictator of something. Like it feels like we're in kind of a little bit of a James Bond cartoony, like supervillain space. This isn't like
it's not
serious,
realism.
like
Yeah.
realism. So I think that'll be important to establish, like just the tone, and go ahead and use the tropes of this to communicate to the guest that that's the way this world works. Like we're expecting traps. We're expecting, hidden things. Like there's no, I don't think there are leaders of the world who have, clues left around in their office to unlock the secret safe and stuff like that. But it certainly makes sense within a certain world. And so I think the beginning is going to help establish that. Just a note from experience in VR, you're asking me to move. And I mean, this is where you can look at the talks that Shell Games has done on I Expect You to Die. They made a world very intentionally about not moving. And the navigation around the space is a little bit necessary. Like looking at this, like you've got a clue that's hidden on a bookshelf. You've got a clue hidden on the one side of the desk. But then beyond that, it doesn't, and I guess you got a going down here, we've got this behind the desk. the TV, the puzzle on the TV, is like the other moment of movement, but you're so, I guess you're really close to a world that doesn't require moving around the space. And so you might want to think hard about, do you need that movement? Because it'll come at a cost. Like you'll have to make it work well, and you have to get the guests to understand and use it. And if we're in a place where it's a little bit tricky to navigate or it doesn't quite work, it might detract a little bit. So I would look hard at that.
I agree. I think you've got enough that you don't need to be moving around the room. You've already got this time when you duck down, and that can be really strong. And right there on either side of the safe could be the bookshelf where the book is. So there's some interesting things there. You've got interesting objects on the top of that desk that you don't really use that much, but then you're going to go over to the TV and work out a puzzle on a TV. But you've got interesting objects on the desk that you could use with knobs and buttons to work out a puzzle there.
Yeah, so I would think hard about just the way you're using the space, and you might, I think pulling it in closer, and you can do stuff like the TV. Maybe the TV comes out of the desk, like the desk transforms, but basically just ways to sort of simplify the interactions the guest has to manage. I really love the ducking moment. Like it's a great use of VR and putting me in the moment. And I think it'd be interesting because it would probably be a distinct contrast to walking. And if you like, I guess was the walking going to be like with the joystick moving around the space as you have it in right now?
No, I think walking was actual walking, and they could move with the trackpad if they needed.
So room scale walking is kind of how you want this to go.
Yeah, I wish that what I'm saying is right? Yeah, room scale walking, and they also had button interactions as well.
Okay,
in case you need to walk.
I think make a choice on that. If you want this to be room scale and you have a certain space that you want to design it for, you can do that. That fits the ducking interaction, right? Like ducking is about me in the space and my movement in the space being real. Whereas using the joystick is about an interface to move around the space. So I think if your world collapses down to, I can move around a little bit, but it's constrained to sort of room scale and a defined room scale, I think that will create a better consistency.
Okay.
It's totally possible to build a world where navigation works and you can sort of get the physical interactions and the navigation. It's just harder. So it's not so much you should never do this in VR. Like there's plenty of VR worlds that incorporate that stuff. But I think just from a scope perspective, you might want to just focus on eliminating walking around as an interface, as a joystick interface.
Okay.
There's so much cool stuff that you can do. I'm not sure that at this moment in time I'm buying the trap. And if I did trigger a trap, a guard coming in without a machine gun firing at me is also kind of weird, that I could just punch the guard out because I am super spy. But you've got so much there that you can play with. I'm not sure that you need the trap.
Yeah, and I guess from a third perspective, because if we look at this twist, like what does the person on the other end of the voice call do when we defy them? And all that.
You mean the guy in your earpiece?
Yeah.
No, you're not. Yeah, that's not clear in the story. But you're never defying him. Like he's always with you along the way. He's as surprised as you when you initiate the trap, because apparently the whole briefcase encasing was a trap.
Okay, so we don't. So do we know who set us up?
Oh, yeah, the premise is like you're on a secret mission to like that office, but it was actually like the president of the evil country like set it up, so you would be sent on a mission to his office so he could trap you.
All right.
Sorry,
So
I didn't explain that.
That's even more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a storyline PDF in the interim folder that can explain the story well.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me pull this one up. Oh, there's more details here.
Yeah, but it's a lot of details.
I'm gonna share it. You can take a look at it. So the president of the country camp with the crazy plan trick. Whew. So what this is doing now, I guess, just heads up. Like the president of the country is now a character.
Yeah.
And more so than it was before. I think that's one thing just to understand about what you're going here is this is now your primary antagonist. So you're going to need to make sure that this character, if you want to do this, is to like bring this character to life. And that means that the stakes of this and the consequences of your actions, and then also the consequences of you foiling this character are all in play. Like you've got this stuff of like the sinister laugh coming from the screen. You fell into my plan. Now the world will burn. No, you ruined everything. So those are really important things. And I think it's fine to like go for this. Like it's part of the trope of sort of like the super spy and the super villains. But getting those to be understandable, and especially, I think one of the questions is this moment here, the sinister laugh coming to the screen, is this the first moment we sort of
interact with the president?
See this character, this villain as a character?
Yeah, in the original script, yes, that was the first time you would actually see him.
Okay.
There could be like later on, there might be an image in a dossier that you open up to get the briefing, but no, originally this was the first interaction.
So I think this is a part of your story that you need to like think about, and I think this could help. Like the fact that you have an antagonist, there's someone you're going against, as opposed to just sort of like I'm generically in an office and I've been told I need to like stop this. Getting me to see my opponent and to recognize that I am sort of in some sense directly interacting with them. I mean, I recognize we're indirectly interacting, but the fact that this isn't just a mission that happens in a vacuum. This happens, I'm sort of being watched, or I'm being, my interactions here have meaning. This character is sort of your tool to make that a thing. So this moment, centralized coming from the screen, is going to be really important. Okay. And I would expect this to go beyond like 2 lines of dialogue. I'm not saying like what you have here is necessarily your script, but this sequence, this is almost your entire like major story arc, right? This is like the major moment of the story, according to this. Is like you realize that you've been tricked, and now your real mission starts. You have to stop the supervillain's plan using just your own 2 fists and your wits. And then this is, in some sense, the resolution of that story. So I think that would be the thing to look at here, is this sequence right here is your real story.
Okay.
And I think I would be mindful of how the rest of that stuff feeds into that, and sort of when this happens, how do I feel about it? Is there and one thing to look at is there anything that I've done up here where that I can undo, right? So from a story perspective, if this is all new down here, it's it's new. Like and it doesn't really tie back to the previous part of the story. But if this is me undoing what I've done, then it has a lot more story meaning, right? Because it's in opposition to what the villain told me to do. And now I'm making a choice to sort of undo their mission. Whereas down here, it's a little bit of like, now there's just a random other puzzle which undoes what he did, which doesn't have as much story meaning. So I would look at that too. Like, how can you connect that in terms of meaning to what I'm doing? And it's fine for the beginning to be very arbitrary. Like, you got to do this to make this happen. But I think after that reveal happens, it should be a lot less arbitrary. It should have more meaning, and that meaning should be set up based on what I did.
Okay, Dave, do you mind if I ask one question? Okay, what if that was removed? What if that twist trap was removed and supposedly you press the button and that's basically just the end of it? Would that be enough story or not enough story?
I mean, one thing to look at is that's kind of a story of the day the mission went according to plan.
Yeah.
Which is a less interesting story. So I would look at why are you telling me that story? Why are you telling me the story of the day the mission went according to plan? And it's you could sort of lean into that, the fact that it's just a successful mission.
Yeah.
But I think you could, but if you think about it, it's the day the mission went according to plan is probably not the story then. It's the day the mission, like the world almost ended, but the spy, saved it at the last minute through their quick thinking.
Oh.
Right? So
nice.
I think what you need to do is, like, the simplicity of the day the mission went according to plan has really low stakes and it's really predictable. Like, everything you said I was going to do, I did, and I just did it. But the day I saved the day has high stakes and it has some tension of, will it work? And so it's then on you guys to make that pushing of the button. That is your biggest moment. Is it, I barely got the button to appear and I push it just in time? Is it, did I push the right button? Like, it's now like my third try and this is the last chance. Like, here we go, cross your fingers. Like, what is the meaning of that moment? So I think it's possible. It's just you have a different set of stakes and a different set of expectations there.
Okay.
So the it's not any easier necessarily.
Maybe, yeah.
You don't want you don't want to walk in and there's the button that the evil president wants you to push right there, gleaming, polished. All you got to do is just touch it and it's done, because then that's way too simple. But at the same time, you want more to do after you've done the bad thing than before you've done the bad thing. Okay, put the real challenge in stopping the disaster, not in starting the disaster.
Put the real challenge
And so an example of this would be, you could have a big red button on the desk. It says, do not push. And you can't really do anything else. And then if the guest pushes the button, it's like, haha, you fell for my plan. You've now set off, like, the world will end in 2 minutes. And now you've got to, like, fix the thing you just caused. But I think that's where the world before pushing the button was all of 15 seconds. And the world after pushing the button is now, like, the real substance of that. And in some sense, that's the simplicity of the story that you're telling, right? You're doing these things as this character that end up causing, the weapon to be activated according to the villain's plan, and now you have to solve that problem. And so it's sort of a story efficiency question of how fast you get to that problem. And the reason you do things before that is because you're going to use them afterwards to make the victory that much more meaningful.
Okay. All right. That's cool. Okay.
But I think like you've got some stuff to think about, but I think watch your scope. I think be careful about adding in locomotion because you may not need it.
Okay.
And then be very thoughtful about the actions the guest takes and sort of like how they connect to the overall story. But I think you guys have a good sense of like the fiction, like this is a great place to be making VR world. Like the people get the tropes, get the characterization. So go ahead and have fun with it. And yeah, like get those story beats to be meaningful, and you guys should be in good shape.
Thank you.
Cool. Good work. Good work, everyone. I mean, I think everyone's got a great start in telling stories, and everyone's telling interesting, complicated, challenging stories. So, really, I love the ambition. Find, know your story. Use knowing your story to make decisions. This is the sort of the secret of scope is being sort of like brutal about cutting things because of scope, but using your story and knowing what it is is essential, letting that guide what you keep and what is inessential. Have some think about that as a team and ask some hard questions about what are you really telling. But like I said, great start, everyone. So with that, we'll take a break, reconvene for the afternoon session. You're welcome to come back. And a reminder, I have office hours, I believe, for tomorrow, but we're going to use Thursday to just sort of get extra feedback if you want it. So go ahead and go to my office hours section to sign up if you want to make that happen. And we'll talk more about story and interaction, all that fun stuff. And next Tuesday, we'll see how it all comes together. So anyway, good work, everyone. And I'll see you back here in just a little bit.